All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. By the way, it's 2 a.m. in my internal clock right now, so this is a very, very early presentation. So we talk a lot at US Signal about looking forward and not in the rearview mirror, but I'm actually going to spend most of the time today talking about things that we've done in the last year to get to where we are, because I think part of this community is being really transparent about the things we've done. So John touched on some of these during his keynote. I'm going to go a little bit deeper and mention some things that he maybe didn't. And so the reminder would be to make sure you fill out your presentation. I did it this morning, Yvette, so she can't hurt me. But just a little bit about me. And first of all, this QR code is not the QR code to my LinkedIn. It is to my Venmo account. So we can get Davin a tattoo this evening. So, you know, feel free to shoot $5 over. If not, I'll cover the difference, because we got to get the cloud monkey on him somehow. So a bit about me. My name's David Humes. I'm the Vice President of Product Development at US Signal. I've been with the business for about 2 years. My time in technology goes back about 15 years. Roughly half of my career has been spent as a customer. So I was actually IT director in a manufacturing company, purchasing private cloud services like we offer with OpenCloud. And then the latter half of my career up until now has really been on the digital infrastructure side. So I worked for a competitor of US Signal's, and then now I've been at Signal for, like I said, 2 years. My responsibility is for product development, and I live in Duluth, Minnesota, which is almost Canada. It's very cold there, so I'm only mildly excited to get home. Luckily, I have my kids to get back to. So my hobbies are cars. We live on a lake, so I spend every opportunity I can when the lake is not frozen to be out there, and then wife and kids keep me pretty busy. Also a home automation enthusiast. I'm a staunch supporter of the Home Assistant project, if anyone does that. So this picture is of me on stage last year in Madrid, and the reason that I'm showing this is the context here is we had just launched OpenCloud like 3 weeks before coming out to Madrid and talking about what we were doing. We've learned a lot in the last year, and so again, this is a little bit of a retroactive in terms of the things we've learned. And you know what I'm talking about aren't the only things we've done as a business, but they're the things that I think have been the most impactful from a customer perspective and a business perspective. So we'll dig into that. John shared some of these stats, but I just wanted to sort of state the thing, right? So last year when I was giving the presentation, we had no customers on OpenCloud. I think, my memory is a little hazy, but I think we signed our first customer while we were here. But the point was we hadn't had experience running CloudStack in a production environment for really any length of time beyond our beta testing. And so today, that's changed. Today we have 43 customers, 650 virtual machines, and a lot of provisioned vCPU and memory. And I'm both impressed and happy with that, but also wish it was like 430 customers. But I think that's where 2026 comes in. So for those that don't know, because you weren't all here last year, and so you're probably wondering, like, what the heck is this OpenCloud thing? This is something that we built at US Signal throughout most of 2024, launching at the end of the year. A lot of people, I think, even internal to our business, think that we built OpenCloud because of Broadcom. And that was the catalyst for sure, but it actually started a few months before. I started in September of 2023. We were in John White's office in our Grand Rapids, Michigan headquarters. Davin was there, Pat Cannon, our field CTO, who's not here. And we were talking about cloud and what private cloud could be. And we all agreed that the traditional VMware vCloud Director was a really fantastic virtualization as a service platform, but it's not really a cloud platform. And so we were theorizing, like, how could we do that? And then, lucky for us or not, 2-3 months later, we started hearing about, Broadcom had closed on the acquisition of VMware, and then we heard rumors that pricing was going up. So that was the catalyst that really caused us to do it. But again, the truth is we had been talking about it for a little bit. So a little bit about our process. The first thing we did after we understood what Broadcom was doing was I brought a group of 10 customers together in Michigan, and we sat in a room for 8 hours, and we talked about some of their challenges as we were facing these massive price increases. Because, of course, we saw a price increase, which meant we had to pass it along to our customers, which is obviously not a super pleasant situation, but we believe in partnership, and so we brought our customers in. And they really validated that they didn't really care about the underlying platform. And so Davin and the team assembled what we call the Tiger team at the time, which was a small group of the sort of most elite engineers in the business to go and assess different virtualization platforms. Alex Dietrich, who you heard from this afternoon, really led that initiative. And ultimately, we're here, so you know what we did. We chose Apache CloudStack. The other thing we did when you talk about asking your customers is we asked them, we built something minimally viable, and then in the summer of 2024, we actually had a beta test. So we had a handful of customers that actually tested the platform to validate that it actually worked the way that we thought it did, but from a customer perspective. So we launched it, first customer signed in November of 2024, and then the following months was really spent bringing a bunch of customers on board, doing education, and I'm going to dig into that. And then more recently, we've enhanced the product with a desktop as a service and a product called Sync Safe Replication, which again I'll talk about in a little bit. So that gives you the idea of the timeline to date. So here are my perspective of the key ingredients to success from a product perspective. I don't know if anyone's ever read the book Crossing the Chasm, but it's a pretty famous product marketing book by Jeffrey Moore. And the concept of crossing the chasm is that when you bring something brand new to the market that people aren't familiar with, if you look at the graph here, your space under the curve is your customer opportunity. So obviously the most customer opportunity, the most business lies in the later stages of the product, but you have to get customers there. And so we really took a strategic approach towards identifying how we're going to cross that chasm. And so the first thing we did, the first rule here is you have to establish a beachhead. You have to find your customer segment that's going to buy the product, and then we'll go and tell everybody else. So for us, that beachhead was the managed service provider space. We have many different customer segments in our business, but if you sort of abstract it out, we have our enterprise customers, which are these larger organizations in the United States. And then we have managed services providers who then have their customers, and they leverage our cloud because they don't own the assets, and so they leverage us for that. So every time they gain a customer, so do we. The reason we chose MSPs as the beachhead was because, well, one, they were disproportionately impacted by the price increase because they were the middleman in the process. And so we increased their pricing. In some cases, they weren't able to turn around and do that with their customers. And so they needed a quick out. The other thing is they tend to be great to work with. They're technical, so they're going to give us feedback pretty immediately. So that was our beachhead, was MSPs. And today, of the 43 customers we have, like 36 of them are managed service providers. So that has proved to be a pretty successful strategy. And then 2025 is really building the whole product. So when we launched OpenCloud last year, we launched a minimally viable product to host a virtual machine in a multi-tenant environment. That was the objective. The objective wasn't to do VDI or GPUs or have a replication product. It was really, can we host this in a multi-tenant environment? But what we know, and it was mentioned yesterday that VMware has pared down their partner ecosystem. So going into 2027, a lot of businesses aren't able to transact with VMware. So what our motivation has been this year is to get this product up to feature parity with VMware so that we can take our customers and other people's customers and put them on the OpenCloud CloudStack platform. But we're not super interested in just meeting what VMware does. I think it's fair to say they not a super innovative company. Solid, sure, fine, but not extremely innovative. And so where we're going forward is really creating that market-leading position. And there's a couple things here that I think are worth calling out. So in the private cloud space, our customers love that because they still care where their data is. They still like being able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. At the same time, if you think about AWS and Azure, and we're friends of the public cloud, we don't view them as enemies. I think the reason they're so big is, yes, they have worldwide scale and massive data centers and lots of money, but they've also built these platform services out that customers love to consume. And so the next stage of OpenCloud is probably less of an infrastructure product, and we'll continuously innovate on the infrastructure side, but probably pushes more towards platform as a service, offering a marketplace, et cetera. And then what do we do after that? We scale. And scale means going from 43 customers to 430 to 2,000 customers, and I think it's completely attainable for us in the next 365 days. It's going to be a lot of work, but I think we have the opportunity to do it. Okay. Enough about product marketing. So here's the key activities to success from my perspective, and I'm going to go into each of these in more detail. The first things first is people. You can't do any of this without having people on board, and so that's why it's bolded and underlined with an exclamation point, because if you don't bring your people along with, nothing else really makes much of a difference. Pricing model and packaging, this gets me excited, but it doesn't get most people excited. But I'll talk about it because it has actually proved to be a pretty significant key to our success. Marketing, you can't open up a web browser, or I can't at least, without seeing something about US Signal OpenCloud. So we're trying to get the word out there because, again, there's not that name recognition in the market, or at least there wasn't. There's certainly starting to be. Migration services, there was a lot of questions that people had for us yesterday after some of the presentations, and I already had this in here. So I'll go into more detail about our strategy here. It's pretty simple, but broadly, anything that you can do to remove the barrier to entry to a product is something that we try to do, and so helping customers migrate is a key piece to that. Third-party validation, this is really around performance testing and price benchmarking. So we say we're great, but are we? So we've had a third party that has done that assessment. The cost calculator, John showed this yesterday, so I'm not going to dig into it here today, but really that's about just being transparent about our pricing. And then desktop as a service and SyncSafe. And then I do have a customer testimonial that I'll play with for all of you here today. So let's talk about people. We're a company of about 465 employees. All employees being on board maybe isn't true. Maybe there's 2 that aren't. But basically, everybody is on board with OpenCloud. We talk about OpenCloud all the time. It comes up on company town halls. We have lunch and learns. We're really evangelizing it, not just from a sales perspective, but we have technical folks that are in labs. We have people getting certified. And that's really been the key, or the main driver. Our sales team, though, because they're the front end of this, it's taken a lot of education to get them comfortable. A lot of these people have sold VMware forever. And while OpenCloud is kind of like it, it's not exactly the same. And plus, our sales team is having to educate the market. So we host weekly lunch and learns with our sales team where we just talk about all things cloud. We have a learning management system that our sales team has to go and get certified in OpenCloud, so they know how to have a conversation out there before it gets to further stages of the sales process. And then the pricing model, again, this gets me excited, but I actually shared basically the exact version of this slide last year, and we were pretty sure it would work, but it's actually proved out to be pretty awesome. So the way that you buy OpenCloud isn't a quantity of vCPUs and memory and storage. That's not how we do it. It's really based on the consumption of resources, and I'll talk about, there's 2 ways that we do this. So the first option, and this is the least popular option, which is a good thing, you'll learn why in a second, is what we call uncommitted usage or uncommitted consumption. This is a customer that signs up, they're not committing to a contract, they're not committing to a spend, they use what they use in OpenCloud, and we bill them for that usage. That customer can leave us with 30 days notice. So again, they're not obligated to stay with US Signal in the long term, but it's a good way for customers who are maybe unsure of the capabilities of the platform to get more comfortable with it. We do POCs as well, but uncommitted usage does a great job at that. The most popular option, though, has been committed consumption. This is like a AWS enterprise discount program, if you're familiar. So we took a page out of the hyperscalers. And what this is really about, again, is not committing to fixed quantities of resources. It's committing to a spend. So if a customer commits to, let's say, $5,000 a month, we don't care if 4,800 of that 1 month is CPU and memory and $200 is storage, and then the next month it's completely reversed for some reason. That wouldn't happen, but you get the extreme example. It's really about having flexibility. And then as we add GPUs and the Ampere CPUs into the platform, that all falls under that committed consumption umbrella. So it gives customers, again, that more true cloud-like flexibility without some of the downsides. And then if a customer exceeds their usage in a given month, their commitment, we bill that delta at the retail rate of the product. Why do we do that? Well, in some cases, that need is very temporary, but it helps us hedge against our infrastructure sizing so that we're staying in a stable spot for the rest of the customer base. It also incentivizes customers, if that workload is permanent, to recontract with us. We'll give them the discount on that delta, and then we'll move on. But some customers might have a temporary need. They have a new application they're standing up, and they just need temporary resources. So we'll do that too. And then talking about resources, because they are relevant. We don't sell necessarily instances. We sell usage. The way that we've approached this, again, is very hyperscaler friendly. And this is an example of some of the instance sizes that we have. There's 40. There's actually more than 40 now. There's maybe 50. Basically different T-shirt sizes of CPU and memory that are fixed together. 40 has proved to be probably too much, transparently, but we didn't know. Our theory actually is that some of these aren't used because they're further down in the list when you scroll. We don't know that for sure, but that's maybe one thing that we've identified. We did have one customer with some SQL performance issues where the ratios threw them off a little bit, so we've now added a couple of additional options. But the strategy here is choice of Linux or Windows. That drives the cost because we're licensing our host with Windows Data Center licensing. But again, in the interest of transparency, we don't want to, if a customer is using Linux or any non-Windows operating system, they don't need to pay the Microsoft tax. We'll burden that with people who are Windows users. Storage, though, is not tied to any particular t-shirt sizes. Customers can provision whatever quantity of storage they want. It's been said, but we're using InfiniBox SSA2 all-flash arrays over NFS. And then our customers have the ability to see their usage and pricing in the portal. And also, our pricing is published on the internet. You can go see our pricing. We're transparent about it, and we discount off of that list rate. So we have no reason really to hide what our retail pricing is. Marketing, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but we went really deep in product documentation, which again doesn't sound all that attractive. But as I'm talking to customers, and maybe I'm having a conversation with a more technical individual, I'll send them the link to our documentation. And it's kind of like the proof that we know what we're doing. They read it, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And we're continuously adding to it. In fact, our documentation now has videos in line. So our videos are on YouTube, but they're also now in line with the documentation. And so if you're not you don't learn by reading, but you learn with visuals, we have video walkthroughs how to do most things in OpenCloud. We've published a number of white papers and blog posts, again, just getting the word out there. Some of them are infrastructure focused, some of them are security, some of them are business and application focused, but everything sort of centers around driving OpenCloud. And then John mentioned the Cloud Advantage Virtual Summit that we hosted during VMware Explore. We put that event together in like 2 weeks. John came to us and said, what do you guys think? And we all said, sounds great. So we ended up putting this together, but we're excited to get it bigger next year and again, drive more awareness. So migration services is something that I mentioned. Our strategy is really simple. A bunch of people have asked questions. It's not complicated. So we have a product that's optional. It's a per VM basis with a fixed amount of time per migration, so it's 2 hours per migration. That fixed price includes the tool and the labor that's required to migrate the customer's virtual machine. In a lot of cases, we don't actually charge for the migration because the deal may allow us to have enough room in it to include it for free. But we still burden the cost of the deal with it because our people's time does have some value. In terms of tooling, we're predominantly using Acronis agent-based. And the reason for that is the source doesn't matter. We have a lot of customers that have migrated to OpenCloud from our own cloud, but we've also had a lot of customers that have migrated from someone else's cloud. And in most cases, you don't have hypervisor access. So we're just doing simple backup and restore functionality. And the reason we're able to do this is we have this pedigree because we have a 24,000 core VMware hosting environment, which obviously we're transitioning to OpenCloud. And we have about 100 Nutanix clusters that are out there. So we have a lot of people experience in migrating. So we're just taking those same people and using their same experience just on a different platform. So professional services engineers and project managers are really understanding, what's the customer workload? The network design is very often the most complicated thing. And then what's the cutover strategy? Is it a one big cutover? Is it a stage migration? It varies heavily depending on the customer. And then from a simplicity perspective, we do provide customers the option to migrate themselves. Most customers, as you know, 95% of our customers have opted to have us migrate. I think the reason for that is if you've ever done a migration before, it's not a normal skill set that most IT people have. You're not typically doing migrations that often. And so I think it's easier for them to just outsource it to us, and we do it really well. And you can see a quote from Derek, one of our customers, that he sent in unsolicited to our project management staff. And then we did have Cloud Mercado. They're a benchmarking platform out of Portugal. We paid them. We gave them access to our production OpenCloud environment, and they published the results. We had no say in what the results were. And what the results showed is that, and we believe that OpenCloud was performant, and we believe OpenCloud was cost competitive. This proved it because they're comparing us to a lot of our competitors. And so we published the Ultimate Cloud Comparison, which provides a bunch more detail in terms of the testing and the parameters and things like that. But the point was to say, customers may listen to us and say we're great, but this is a good way of having a third party validate that. And then on the cloud cost calculator, John showed this. I was going to demo it. I actually didn't know he was demoing it yesterday too, so I took that part out of my presentation. But I think the key here is, we talked yesterday about, the age of people that are involved in the CloudStack community. And I think what's also true is all of our customers get younger and younger every day, because sadly we all get older every day too. And I don't know about you all. I'm 36, but I don't buy things unless I know what they cost. I don't want to go fill out a form on a website and then have a salesperson reach out to me and have 6 meetings just to get to a price and figure out I can or cannot afford it. I'd like to know first, and then we can go and dig into the details. So that's the purpose of the cloud cost calculator. It's not meant to be end-all, be-all, but it's meant to orient customers so they understand where things are at. And that's proved to be quite successful as well. We've had, by the way, in case you're wondering, I had marketing pull the stats. 259 people have went to the calculator and calculated their cost savings. And that's only been up since, I don't know, earlier in the fall or something like that. So it hasn't really been around that long. So it does get used pretty frequently. Some of them might be like me doing it, though, too, just to be fair. And then leveraging OpenCloud to do more. I think what we built as an MVP, it's a solid foundation to the house. But the beauty, based on open source tooling and robust infrastructure, is everything we do on top of that is additive. It's still performant. It's price competitive. It's secure. And so that's really been the task of my team this year, is to start to do more on top of OpenCloud. So we launched the desktop as a service product back this summer in July. The reason that we did this is below. The managed services customers that I mentioned, one of the things that they do is they typically sell customers virtual desktops. And the reason they do that is it allows them to centralize management. They can add margin to it. Customers love the experience. And so when we originally built OpenCloud, a lot of our MSPs actually couldn't buy it because they needed VDI to come along with it because the workloads needed to sit next to each other. So we went through a process and ultimately chose Inuvica OVD Enterprise as the platform. That rides right within the customer's tenant in OpenCloud, so it can physically and logically sit next to the applications and the databases. And it works really great. It's deployed on a per tenant basis, so the blast radius is really small if there ever was an issue. And we have a ton of opportunities in the pipeline. And then what's really exciting is as we add GPU pass-through and GPU splicing into the CloudStack project, we can now then accelerate virtual desktops with GPUs. So the use cases are obviously things like medical imaging. So we have a radiology opportunity where they do radiology imaging. And they're having to pull that across a LAN that takes forever, right? And radiologists in the United States make a lot of money. Time is money. And so that's a really interesting use case. And then in engineering or manufacturing, there's tons of use cases for GPU-accelerated desktops as well. And then on the sync-safe replication side, so we're leveraging the OpenText availability platform. It also used to be called DoubleTake if you've been around for a few minutes. And that is agent-based replication. The reason we did that is it allows us to protect workloads from any ground site. So it doesn't have to be a CloudStack-based solution. And of course, in the United States, there's very little CloudStack. There's a lot of VMware. There's Hyper-V. There's Proxmox. There's Verge. So what SyncSafe lets us do is be the cloud target or cloud destination for customers with workloads anywhere. And then obviously, of course, it also helps customers who run their production on our OpenCloud but want to replicate to another zone. Obviously, they can use native CloudStack tools, but this provides a good option for those customers as well. The next thing I'll do is I'm just going to set up this testimonial. So Laura and I had the opportunity to travel to Saginaw, Michigan to visit a customer of ours called NetSource One. They've been a customer of US Signals for many, many years. And the context behind this video is they purchased previously the VMware multi-tenant product from us. They're a pretty large managed service provider, and obviously this impacted them pretty significantly. So interestingly, NetSource One, and Andy Skripczak is the president and CEO, Ed French is the VP of IT and CIO. These two have become friends of mine through this process. They were actually both at that initial customer advisory board that I talked about back in February of 2024. They were also beta testers of OpenCloud, and they are also paying customers of OpenCloud today. So we've really brought them along on the journey. And at some point last summer, I had been messaging Andy and just was like, hey, could we come bring a video crew up to your office and you tell the OpenCloud story? We didn't pay them, we didn't give them any discounts, they did this all on their own time, and I'll let the video speak for themselves. But I wanted to share this for two reasons. One, I want you to know how awesome we are, but two, I also think there's a lot of power in all of us having our customers tell other customers. Referrals are one of the strongest ways to gain new business. And so, don't take our word for it. Here it is.
I'm Andy Scripjack. I'm the president and CEO of NetSource One. We're a technology service provider. We founded in 1999. Headquartered in Saginaw, Michigan, with offices in Troy, Michigan.
I'm Ed French. I am the Vice President and CIO of NetSource One. We're responsible for several hundred clients. And with every client, they're concerned about budget, they're concerned about life cycle, and they're concerned about security.
One of the biggest challenges we faced prior to moving to OpenCloud was our relationship with VMware. Not that long ago, Broadcom acquired VMware. And the changes that they have implemented have been very disruptive to not only our business, but I think anybody in our industry. It started with pricing issues. You couldn't get quotes. Nobody knew the rules. The rules were changing on a weekly basis. It's been a nightmare.
Broadcom VMware has been a behemoth in the industry forever, and there's a lot of fear about moving away. A lot of people think that the only solution then is, oh, I'm going to go to Microsoft Azure. And there is a lot of complication when you do that, not just from how do I put it together, but even for like my engineers being able to support it.
We recognized very early on that when Broadcom acquired VMware, we needed to look for alternatives. Of course, we did our due diligence, but we watched what US Signal was doing. And when they announced that they were developing this open cloud platform, I had to learn more. They've been a trusted partner of ours for years. I have no reservations about following what US Signal is doing.
Working with US Signal, they have a catalog of products that you can choose from. Then we work with the US Signal team. I know I need this many resources, CPU, RAM, and then my operating system. You don't get that type of assistance from any of the public clouds. You only get that from working with someone like US Signal.
Our most recent ground to cloud migration project went so smooth, we all kind of sat around at the end of it asking ourselves, what did we miss? Because we were within budget, we were, faster timeline than we had anticipated. It was great. It's always been collaborative. Oftentimes we're learning something new, sometimes they're learning something new. And it's great to kind of partner up.
There's just so many times you would get disconnected from the servers. If you were working on a server for an hour, it would just unauthenticate you. And then you have to log back in and re-authenticate. Now that we're in the open cloud, there's actually excitement from my engineers. They really see the benefits and the ease of working with the open cloud. And I just don't get the complaints from my engineers that I get with other solutions.
One of the most important things that we've seen is a lack of support issues and having to readdress, we call it rework, and that just drives your profit margins down. The project engineers now are focusing on design and implementation and not support issues after the fact.
When you move to the open cloud solution, you now have a very predictable cost. You don't have egress charges. You just have that one flat rate that you're paying. So it's very predictable and easy to work with. You don't have to worry about every 5 years I'm replacing the servers. I don't have to worry about a problem with my UPS or power or air conditioning. Plus it provides a very secure solution for them. Many people that haven't worked with US Signal may not be aware that they complete SOC 2 Type 2 audit. They have HIPAA compliance. And so it makes good, easy vendor due diligence for us and our customers.
I cannot recognize these guys enough. They are great at what they do. Our conversations with US Signal are like a couple of buddies talking about their golf game. It has that feel to it. Having the ability to pick up the phone and actually talk to somebody that you've probably even met before in person. And you can't do that with a public cloud. And that confidence is just wonderful to have. It seals the deal for us.
All right. I have one slide left, which is great because I'm out of time. Couple of things. Every presentation should have a call to action and things that we think could be better. And some of these are US Signal things, some of these are community things. But my ask of all of you is let's partner on ISV integration opportunities as we're pushing vendors to provide support for KVM and CloudStack. It's better if we do it as a unified front rather than as individuals. And so when we think about things like data protection and network devices, let's approach this together. We have more power together as a group. We're also building out some marketplace functionality. This is the next stage of the product. This is in early R&D cycles right now. We don't know what it's going to look like just yet, but we want to give customers the flexibility to provision load balancers, firewalls, et cetera, on the fly. We seek to add distributed management as we add more and more OpenCloud instances across the country. We want it easy to manage, but also not have risk of a site failure causing a broad outage. And then lastly, we have a lot of interest in building a US-based user group as well. There's currently none in the United States, and so we want to be the thought leader in the US as well. So thank you. This is not a link to my Venmo. This is actually a link to this presentation. So feel free to scan it. It's on our website. And feel free to reach out to me with questions. I'll be in the hallway since we may not have time for Q&A.